Hi, I'm Mark Monlux, and this is your Friday night movie recommendation. So, the year is 1933. Here's what's happening in the world. FDR, president elect, survives assassination attempt and then becomes the president of the United States. He ushers in the New Deal. Over in Germany, Hitler rises to power and starts to close down and trade unions, amongst many other reforms. Damn Nazis. In the US, on the entertainment side of things, Night and Day by Leo Reisman, that's sort of like the number one song that's being played on records. At the on Broadway, Anything Goes by Cole Porter is a big hit, and the Oscar awards. Well, they didn't have the Best Picture category. What they had was the Oscar for production, and that goes to a movie called Cavalcade. That's a decent enough film, but it doesn't make the huge impact on society or culture as the movie I'm going to be recommending to you from 1933, The Invisible Man. Okay, so James Wells, who also did Frankenstein, he also directed this movie. Well, boy, it's hard to say. People were coming in and off of this movie. At one time, the pre-production fiascos of trying to get this movie made went through a lot of things. At one time, Boris Karloff was going to star. And who do they play? I mean, I say the name Claude Rains with such glee because I can't imagine another man more perfect for this role, insomuch as you really don't see his face because, hey, he's the Invisible Man, but you hear his voice and his Claude Rains, his voice is wonderful. It's got a slightly worn quality to it. There's charm, there's hysteria, there's a depth to it, and Claude Rains goes on to be one of the best character actors I've ever seen. And part of the reason I love him so much is because of his voice. I fell in love with his voice. And they did. The special effects that they created for this, they really worked hard at making these special effects. They hadn't been done before to such a scale. I mean, this is black and white. This is before blue screen, so they had to figure that out far, far before CGI. I could tell you how they do some of the scenes, but I want you to do the research after the fact, and you'll be amazed to what. Oh, is that how they did it? I thought that was some sort of weird masking effect, but no, it was a practical effect. So the Invisible Man, in case you don't know, it's basically this chemist starts experimenting around, turns himself invisible, goes a little batty. H.G. Wells wrote The Invisible Man, and the book, there hasn't been a really faithful adaptation of the book to screen, but this one comes this one hits some of the high points. I love H.G. Wells. Always had as a kid. I mean, I was one of those kids that read H.G. Wells, Jules Verne. Those were my early reads. I read those when I was like 7 or 8. I just gobbled up. I would go on to other, I go on to read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but really, that type of science fiction and is what really drew me in those early books. And to see it on it was on television because let's face facts. From 1933, I wasn't around. I might be an old fart, but I'm not that old. So I got to see it on television dozens and dozens of times. And I really think everyone should have this movie underneath their belt. It's one of those universal classic horror films. As a matter of fact, it's one of the movies featured in a Universal set that includes, Frankenstein and the Wolfman and the Mummy. If you haven't seen it, take the time to see it. Now, you might wonder, how am I going to see this? Because if you go and look on streaming service, it's still behind a pay gate, because guess what? It's that good of a film. It's that much of a classic. It had that much relevance. Now, they did a remake in 2022, which wasn't really a remake, but it was more slanted towards a commentary on domestic violence, and it wasn't a chemist. And well, all that really had going and saying that it was the same, or the only way I can say it's a remake is that it was produced by Universal. And there was an Invisible Man. But that's not to say that there hasn't been a slew of other movies out there that featured invisibility as the main theme. And a lot of the effects that they used from this film would later go on and be applied to those films. So it's a real stepping stone. There is an amount of humor that's good for this, an amount of thrillingness that's good for this. All in all, it's a nicely tight, it's some parts of it can be cliche. We're talking 1933. And maybe it isn't quite as elaborate as today's standards, but for the day, even now, that charm and those effects do a fair amount of holding up. So, if you're going to pick a movie from 1933 to watch, I would definitely pick The Invisible Man. Yeah, you could watch, The Ghoul with Boris Karloff, but you're just going to see a lot of people wandering around in the dark for most of the film. I mean, there were a couple scenes that were memorable from The Ghoul, but honestly, deep impression made by The Invisible Man. It did wonderful in the theaters. Anyway, so that's my Friday night movie recommendation. If you like this movie recommendation, please like and follow, hit all the various buttons. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the doobly-doo down below. I'll see if I can put a link to a trailer for The Invisible Man. I'm sure somebody must have made something on there. And I'll give you another recommendation next week. I'll probably jump up another decade and choose something from 1943. I wonder what it'll be. Check back in, and I'll see you then.